Bolted doors and windows barred, guard dogs prowling in the yard, won't protect you in your bed, nothing will from Pumpkinhead. This week I'm in practical effects heaven, because we're doing Pumpkinhead, the directorial debut of Stan Winston, an absolute titan of special effects in cinema. He worked on the Terminator series,
Oh yeah.
the first Jurassic Park trilogy, Aliens, The Thing, and frequently always works with James Cameron, Spielberg, Tim Burton, aka when it comes to directors that use a lot of practical effects, the best in the business. So Stan Winston, he maybe wouldn't be considered the standout, obvious best ahead of everyone else in terms of special effects in cinema, but if there was a Mount Rushmore, he would definitely be up there. This movie was actually inspired by a poem by Ed Justin. The studio came to Stan Winston pitching it. They just were seeing if he wanted to get involved with the special effects, but he actually decided this was the perfect project for his directorial debut. Also working on the project was Shane Mahan. He was basically Stan Winston's protege. He worked at his company for the longest time, and he was the eventual successor who kind of took over the whole studio after Stan Winston passed away. He was actually credited with leading the special effects in this, leading the creature design. Yeah. Stan Winston, obviously, his vision as the director, he'd be able to know exactly how to film it, how to shoot it, how to set up the sets and the shots to get the most out of the practical effects, which, this movie had a minuscule $3 million budget, but the special effects actually took up a fraction of that, where you wouldn't expect that. You'd think you'd think the special effects would eat into the most of it, and then you'd end up with a terrible cast, terrible acting, terrible photography, because that's where all the money went. But it's actually the opposite in this case, because Stan Winston knew how to get the most out of everything.
Ready, action! Tom, looking good behind it, Chris. Now, look up here at Tracy.
But when it came to actual creature design and making the special effects, it was all handed over to Shane Patrick Mahan. Also, to head off the team, you had Tom Woodruff Jr. Now, he was a special effects guy, but also a performer and an actor, and he basically connected the two in the sense that he would be a puppeteer and also be in the costumes.
Okay.
So this man, he was in Starship Troopers, he was in It, he was in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. That's the movies he worked on, but in terms of roles he actually took, he was a lion in Jumanji.
Right.
As in, he was in the puppet working it from the inside.
Okay.
He was the lead primate creature from Evolution.
Really?
He was the gorilla in Hollow Man. Do you remember in Hollow Man? Was it Isabel the gorilla? He was the lead alien in Aliens 3 and Aliens Resurrection.
Wow.
He was a graboid in Tremors.
Oh, really? Fucking hell.
And he was Goro in Mortal Kombat.
Wow, man.
So this guy
extensive CV.
If you need to stick a guy in a giant puppet, then this is the guy to do it. And do you know what's funny? I know a lot about practical effects. I've got a hard on for practical effects every single episode. But I never really realised there was people in those suits. I assumed, if you had the Alien Queen, that was just an animatronic. If you had Goro, I assumed it was just animatronics or puppetry. But I never realised someone was actually in the suit. The human star of the film is Lance Henriksen. And do you recognise him?
I recognised his face, but I just couldn't put my finger on where.
Well, it was Bishop the android from Aliens.
Fuck.
And to be honest, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I love that actor. And then I looked through the rest of his IMDb, and bizarrely, he never really did much other than this movie. Anything that of too much note. He was also, the only thing I could really find that stood out was he was King Bowser from Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, really?
Which is a fucking terrible movie.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And the fact that he was cast as that character shows you how off that movie got it. So Tom Woodruff Jr., who was in the costume the whole time, went through absolute hell playing Pumpkinhead. He would have to be glued into the suit for 8 hours at a time. Unable to move, barely able to breathe except for a little mouthpiece that would go up to the back of the suit. And he would be in absolute agony, completely stiff, beaten up, and having to go the next day straight away.
Oh, fuck that, man.
Honestly, it looks terrible, but well worth it for when you get a look at Pumpkinhead. So you get this a lot when a special effects master decides to start directing. And what you predictably get is very good special effects, but poor storytelling, poor acting. Maybe the actors aren't too bad, but they didn't really know how to use the actors and all the pieces. Poor editing. You didn't really get this in this movie. There was moments. It's got its problems, without a doubt.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's more in the editing nearly, which I assume he had a hand in as well, but it lingers too long in certain shots or certain moments. some moments just don't work. Some action when they're piecing it together, it just doesn't sell it, and it becomes more a bit laughable, or might have worked better off screen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I was actually really, really impressed, considering this guy had never directed a movie before. This opening scene where we have a man running through the woods and a family staying at home. They clearly know he needs help or something bad is going on, and it creates this atmosphere straight away. And there's this really nice contrast between that warm, inviting orange glow of the fire that's lighting up the room inside the cabin, compared with this, sharp blue lighting under the moonlight that's outside as this man runs away from what we later find out to be Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
And, the acting in this scene's nice. The atmosphere is really good. I really liked it. Up until the moment where the guy gets killed. And we both burst out laughing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like these awkward Yankee shots where he's getting thrown from side to side. It probably would have been more effective if you didn't see Pumpkinhead at all in this opening sequence.
I agree with that.
And you don't see a lot of them. The actual silhouetted shot from through the window from the fellow who's inside's perspective as he sees the man outside dying is actually pretty effective. It's a well done shot. But there's something about it where it's way too much of Pumpkinhead way too soon.
That would have been a perfect opening scene because we as the audience know what the film's called. So we know Pumpkinhead's going to be in it. We don't necessarily know what Pumpkinhead is, but you can sort of tell from the poster and the promotional art it's going to be a horror, essentially.
Yeah, he's a giant monster.
He's a giant monster.
He's a giant pumpkin.
Slash demon. He's going to have a backstory, which we'll get into later. But I think, as you said, good horror films kind of in the opening sequence are able to just whet the audience's appetite and then build it up. It was just like, you've just revealed it straight away. Like, it's kind of like taking a lot of the excitement out of it for me. So I was a bit frustrated with that, actually, to be honest.
And it's funny as well because compared with the rest of the movie, the linear line of showing little glimpses and hints of Pumpkinhead up until, actually really seeing him in full picture towards the end is handled perfectly. You get as much as you want to always be wanting more, but never feeling like, there's nothing worse in a monster movie where you really never see the monster. There's nothing worse than you see too much of the monster straight away. And other than this opening sequence, they handle it perfectly throughout.
Yeah, it's got to be balanced because all the best memorable horror villains have the perfect screen time.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, Declan, I think their franchises go on too long. Like, I don't know. This is a franchise, isn't it? I don't know about.
Yeah, it is actually. It was 3 sequels, I believe.
I don't know about the other 3, but from looking at this, I mean, going back into my expectations about this, you suggested this film. I just felt this was going to be a pile of garbage, and by garbage, I am saying that as an endearing term, as in. This is going to be really so bad that it's good, and it's going to be funny. And as you said, I was pleasantly surprised.
So was I, because that brings us into the next scene where we're introduced to the main characters, and you have the father and the son. And it starts establishing their relationship, but it isn't corny, it's not forced. I think we had a chuckle where he starts telling them a story.
Yeah.
In a kind of very, I'm telling a story, I'm an actor sort of way. But other than that, it did feel like a slice of life. We were both thinking, where's the mum? And the questions the movie wants you to ask, you ask without it being forced. You don't really think about it. And I got the relationship straight away.
This is something special.
You really like it?
I love it.
You don't have to wear it every day or nothing, just when it strikes you.
It kind of reminded me of Jaws. Jaws was a B movie made with A-class quality.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this is made this well. This is a B movie made with B+ quality. But in Jaws, the family moments, the relationship moments are as great as the shark moments. Maybe even better. I remember the speech about the ship that sunk that was carrying the bomb that went over to Japan. And all that. And, that tender moment between father and son in Jaws where he says, give me a hug because I need it with his son. Those moments really ring true. And in this as well, they take a lot of time developing the relationship between the father and son, but not in an annoying way. It feels quite realistic.
Yeah. And what I liked about this is, because this is a horror film, like, straight away, like, because it was so idyllic between them, and I love you, son, and all this stuff. You're just sitting there as the audience member, like, one of them is going to die.
I don't think it's going to be Henriksen.
Yeah. So that was quite nice, but yeah.
So then we get introduced to the teens.
Yeah.
So this cracked me up straight away.
Yeah, it was so funny.
I loved the Han, get me a beer. That
Yeah,
guy, who you can immediately tell is just an absolute dick.
Honey, get me a beer.
What also cracked me up as well, this movie was made in the 80s. You, like, even though I knew it was made in the 80s, I don't have to know it was made in the 80s. Because you see them driving the classic convertible roof down, and then it just cuts to one in the car behind. He's got like that fitness sweatband.
All the girls have like the big hair.
Yeah, and you're like, this is an 80s.
And to be fair, until the teens showed up, you could think it was the 1930s. Because this is set in poor white middle of the country America. The kind of place where Dolly Parton grew up, where everyone's dirt poor. The little shop that the father and son run, you know, it looks like someone built it out of a shipwreckage. All the other characters live in these horrific looking slums that could have been out, shanty towns that could have been out in the 1930s. And then you have these out of towners. So there's already a tension there where the teens come in and they start shopping, and you can tell Henrik Larsson just doesn't like him.
Yeah.
Sorry, I keep saying Henrik Larsson.
Celtic footballer.
Lance Henriksen just doesn't like him.
But what I noticed, Declan, is even though these people are like poor and like they have like a simple life, and they seem to be like genuinely happy, like, and that, do you know what I mean? Like,
there is something alluring about that sort of way of life, and it's probably because we're not in it. But do you know what it is? It's exotic in a weird sort of way.
They sustain themselves on their own farms, I assume, and like all they've got to do is like pick up chicken feed. Like, they don't have to worry about the fucking cost of living.
You say that, but the teens come in and they quickly meet this local family who are clearly, you know, they're literally caked in dirt. All their clothes are caked in dirt. They don't look like they have a spare pair of clothes. They don't look like they've washed in weeks. And I remember I just said to you, like, the poverty, like, it was shocking. Like, and that actually exists out there in those parts of America. So you set up that, and Bunt is kind of the eldest of these poor kids.
Bunt, yeah.
And he has a weird encounter. Like, he ends up being a bit of a mini hero in the movie, but he has a weird encounter where he nearly tries to intimidate a girl with a camera.
Hey.
What I liked about the scene before, with the funny bit about give him my beer, automatically it sets him up as like, this guy is such a dickhead,
and he goes to a point of establishing that kind of no one else in the group likes the guy or approves of what he's doing either.
Really, Tracy, you know, Joel is a great guy once you get to know him.
There's this further scene in it where he meets the little boy, and he's, you know, they're poor, they can't go Specsavers or whatever they have there, and he's got like this really like nerdy massive lens, and he goes like straight away, look at those Coke bottles, and you're like, what's a mug?
Check out this kid's glasses. We're talking Coke bottles.
Jesus.
What? All I said was...
We heard you, man.
But I'm not gonna lie, at this point I loved him because he goes about establishing all the characters. You know, you got the religious girl who's already seemingly going to have a nervous breakdown. You got the sort of nerdy guy who seems like a pussy but ends up not being so much of a pussy.
Yes.
You got the cool jock arsehole who's going off on a motorbike and a dirt bike and driving about while they're parked up. You got his younger brother who's a good guy but in the orbit of his brother's huge personality. And the jerk's girlfriend. And he establishes all the characters really quickly. You said it was a bit weird. Lance Henriksen basically leaves his kid. And he goes off. Can't remember what he's going to do, but he needs to go off for some reason. So anyway, so he leaves his kid alone, and shock horror, he gets run over.
Yeah, it's important to note that obviously it sets him up that he's been drinking from the start. And then he gets the bike out, and then the brother gets the bike, and they say don't encourage him, and he says something like really shit or corny, like he's my brother, which has nothing to do with encouraging him. Right. But no one says or mentions like, you shouldn't be doing off-road biking if you're pissed. Yeah, but
that's not a plot hole. That's and if anything, that's good at establishing the dynamic of this group because it's actually it's pretty common for, you know, people will have friends in a group who they don't necessarily even like and kind of dominates them socially in a weird way. So it's actually a pretty realistic social group in that sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the crash happens. It's not well done. This is one of the bits where I was probably the least impressive directed scenes in the movie where, again, you could have easily just done it off screen and showed the reactions of everyone else.
Yeah, the thing is, it must have been difficult, though, because, like, you can't show it, but the way it looks is, like, you know, in, like, those really shit films where they, like, literally, someone, like, falls out of a window, and you can see they've literally, like, just chucked, like, a duck and it's, like, falling.
They're like, It films them up close, and then it cuts to the wide shot, and it's just like a mannequin.
It's just the guy. It was that bad.
Like, and again, just don't show it. But again, it's hard to know how much of the problems like that were from the direction as opposed to the editor.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you get a poor editor, even if you're Steven Spielberg, they can cut it together to feel shite. It might have been filmed well. Taking Stan Winston off the hook there, you know, maybe it was just him.
Yeah.
But other moments are done really, really well. So anyway, the kid dies, everyone clears off, they all freak out. The jerk's brother decides to stay because he's, you know, I guess he's got the best moral compass, and he's just like, I don't want to leave.
Need your help? It's with Maggie, and I'll stay with the kid. I'll stay with them. Go!
Lance Henriksen shows up and just kind of picks him up. Doesn't do a great job of establishing if the son's dead or not yet. And it was kind of funny as well because once he's run over and everyone's crowding around him, at one point, one of the girls says he's cold.
Is he all right?
Yeah.
Which, if he was dead, he literally died seconds ago. And then he's not dead, so I don't understand how that line was left in it.
This was actually my biggest problems with this film. This is definitely nothing to do with editing. It's either the way the script's written or the way it's directed, because it just isn't like... I was just turning around to you in this scene, like, just like saying, we're both trying to work out, I think he's dead. No, he's not dead. And like, how stupid that is. Like, anyone, like, who's anyone, you don't need a first aid course to be like, check the pulse. Let's check he's breathing.
Or not even that,
Do you know what I mean?
but establish it for the audience.
Yeah.
Because at least that makes Lance Henriksen's reaction make more sense at first, because he doesn't really react. And then, other than giving a glaring, I'm going to fucking get
Fuck you up, yeah.
I'm going to curse you and kill you, look to the jerk's brother.
But can I help?
So he takes him back to his shack and back to his house, and, you know, he has a couple of words. The son wakes up at one point, and I felt bad. I was like, okay, he is alive, but then he's probably going to die. Like, where else would this movie be going? And it's a bit drawn out, and I guess they wanted to have that poignant moment between father and son, but I did kind of think, why didn't you just kill him there?
No, I totally agree with that.
Because then also, the teens for the rest of the movie are scared because they think they might have killed a kid, but they don't know if they killed the kid.
Yeah.
So again, you're a bit like, wouldn't it just have been simpler to establish the fact that he's dead for everyone straight away? But anyway, the kid's dead, and Lance Henriksen is pissed. So he goes off and is trying to look for a swamp woman who have certain magic powers. Assumingly she's a witch. He knows about it because he was the young child in the opening sequence where his father wouldn't let him in. And that's what I liked about this as well, is I like how everyone in the area seems to be aware of this folklore and aware that there is truth to it. You know, the children don't necessarily know, but all the adults know, but they're all hush-hush about it. And it gets quite tense whenever it's brought up. So he meets this witch. And again, the set looks amazing. The special effects on the makeup of the witch, which took, I think, like 3 hours every morning before shooting, looks great. And the acting is great. Like, it works. The scene, it works.
No, so the reason I was laughing about that, Declan, you can kind of work out that they're going to see some sort of supernatural being, because they were talking about Pumpkinhead, and before they, you know, talk to the peasant swamp people, and he's like, I'm not telling you where it is. Anyway, he gets told where it is and goes up there. But they put deliberate visual cues in this to basically be like, you audience members might be thick and not be able to work out that he's talking to a witch. So it just cuts to an owl going, whoo, and then like there's a mouse like comes out, and then some tarantulas.
About 8 tarantulas.
Yeah, about 8 tarantulas, and it's like, so hang on, you've had to give us cues about this, but on the other scene, you haven't really established if someone's dead or not. So I was trying to work out.
You're absolutely right there. And it's funny as well because the way the scene's filmed, the set inside a little hut in the middle of nowhere, the look of the witch, the lighting, you didn't need those cues.
You didn't need it.
It was creepy as fuck. Like, you'd done your job already. He goes, first of all, he wants to, you know, bring his son back to life. But she's like, nah, I don't do that. I'm in the revenge business. If you want if you want a demon conjured up, I can do that for you. So she explains to me he has to go off to this graveyard and dig up something. She doesn't tell him what. And I kind of thought, like, that's a bit annoying, like.
Yeah, again.
What if I dig up the wrong thing and come all the way back here?
But this made me laugh as well, because he goes to this cemetery. She says, dig something up. She doesn't say anything before about look for some sort of landmark within a cemetery, which I assume is fucking massive, because cemeteries are huge. And then, like, all of a sudden, the ground's flat, and there's one big central structure, and he climbs up onto it. And what's on the central structure? A row of pumpkins. So you're like, must be it.
Yeah, it's a pumpkin patch.
yeah, pumpkin
because
patch.
Pumpkinhead does not have a pumpkin head in this.
No.
He's got that simply because he is buried under a pumpkin patch in an abandoned graveyard, which again is another beautiful set. It just looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So he digs it up, and it's like this little corpse baby Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, oh, okay.
Like,
So he brings that back, and the witch does this weird ceremony where she's cutting and taking some blood from Lance Henriksen's hand.
Yeah.
She takes some blood from the dead body of his son, rubs it together and combines it, and you have Pumpkinhead come to life. You didn't know this was made by Stan Winston, like an amazing special effects guy, so I could tell you were shocked when the first reveal of this baby Pumpkinhead turning into the full giant 10-foot tall Pumpkinhead.
I wanted it to stay as the baby Pumpkinhead.
It was cute, wasn't it?
Because like, if that franchise got famous, I would actually buy that little toy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like my auntie used
it
to have
probably
like
reminded
an
me
ET.
of the baby Groot compared to the giant Groot. So you see it for a brief moment from a certain angle where you see just enough to get the sense of how big it is.
Yeah.
But it does, again, it's teasing it at this point really well. Lance Henriksen passes out from the ceremony because it takes a lot out of him. So meanwhile, while this has been happening, the kids have gone off to the cabin. So again, this is where it elevates itself above your average horror movie. Because when you heard that they were going to a cabin in the movie, the dialogue between the teens, you kind of threw your head up and laughed like, oh, that old trope.
I was just like, oh, cabin in the woods again.
But usually in that sort of movie, you would get, the kids would be shagging, they'd be going skinny dipping, any excuse to get their tits out, they'd be drinking, and that would basically be the thing they'd cut to in between, Jason or whatever serial killer going around and killing people. But you don't get that. You get this moral dilemma.
Right now, if the police find out about it.
They're not gonna find out about it.
Look, man, I'm real sorry about that, but that little boy down there needs our help now.
Where they're dealing with the fact that they've run away as this kid was killed. Some people are breaking down over it. The big jerk guy is refusing to deal with it. If someone tries to leave, he gets into a fight with the nerdy guy. He ends up locking two of the people in the cupboard because they're trying to get out and they want to go alert the authorities because they're guilty.
When we get out of here, Joel's gonna be carrying his balls home in a knapsack.
Remind me never to piss you off, Tracy.
The brother of the jerk is trying to reason with him and get through to him. But he also feels terrible because it's his brother, so he's even considering saying it was him and giving himself up.
I'll tell him it was my fault. That it was my bike that hit him. The worst they're gonna give me is a slap on the wrist.
First of all, it's so much more interesting than the kind of bullshit you see in those other movies, but you realise everything about this movie is about moral dilemmas. From the very opening sequence, we have the moral dilemma of this family who aren't letting this guy in, even though they can hear him outside screaming for help, and they're like, no, I'm not getting involved. We have the moral dilemma of the father going to this witch and seeking revenge on all these kids. You have the moral dilemma of the kids leaving. You have all the mini moral dilemmas of, should we do something? Should we go back? Should I just keep my mouth shut? Will I speak up? You have all these things going on, and it plays all the way through the movie. And it's actually such a deeper movie in a lot of ways than you'd expect from seeing the poster.
We do reveal something about the douchebag character here.
Yeah.
Because when they get to the cabin, it is revealed that he is currently on probation for another drink driving accident. So it kind of elaborates how much of a scumbag he is. And back to the point about it not making clear that the kid has died or not. I guess the whole point of it, Declan, is this moral dilemma. Because they don't know if he's dead, do they? So they're like, no, the kid's okay. Like, we need to go back. Obviously, Declan, if they knew he was dead, they'd probably be like, well, let's just fuck off because he's dead.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Do you know what I mean? So,
and again, it's really interesting that just before the killing starts, the jerk comes to his senses, or he comes to the light and says, do you know what? I've been a piece of shit my whole life, and I'm going to stop doing it from now.
I'm always fucking up. My whole life, one big fuck up. But it stops now.
And he lets the people he's locked in the cupboard out, or the little room, whatever it is. And he says, let's go. So you realise he's finally made the right decision, but it's too fucking late because Pumpkinhead's shown up.
Yeah.
We talked about all the nice scenes and the setting up the family and all that shit, but let's be real, we're here for Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
So Pumpkinhead's shown up now, and it takes what, maybe 30-40 minutes for him to show up?
Yeah.
And he wastes no time. He starts fucking people up immediately. He gets the jerk's brother when he's wandered outside with the little nervous breakdown chick, takes him up into a tree, beats the shit out of him. You think he's killed him, but then you realise he starts scaring the people in the house with him. He starts dangling in front of them when they try and leave the house. And you look at Pumpkinhead and you think, this guy's going to just pick you up and bite your head off. But he doesn't. He tortures people.
Yeah.
When he gets hold of the Christian nervous breakdown girl, everyone runs inside and they're freaking out. And he slowly carves a cross into her face. He grabs her face and ripes it along all the windows, scaring the fuck out of the people inside, and eventually smashes her head through the window. And you're like, holy fuck, man. A monster, a giant 10-foot tall, 12-foot tall monster that slowly tortures you. That is fucking scary.
I never thought I'd say these two words in the same sentence, or 3 words or 4 words, but Pumpkinhead is a very sadistic demon.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, I know all demons are bad, but Pumpkinhead is particularly sadistic.
Yeah, he's evil as fuck.
I think like, I would actually compare him, fucking, what's his name? Jeepers from Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah, I see that.
He tortures them and he's very tortures them.
He brings them back to torture him.
Yeah, exactly.
Pumpkinhead's so big as well. He picks you up, he throws you up, he climbs up a tree, drops you out of it onto a giant rock. Like, he is fucking scary as shit.
I'd like to talk about the actual deaths. Like, some of them was quite comedic, like, especially the one that you just discussed. Like, he's got a dangling up. You know he's gonna drop this. And this was the really, like, fit girlfriend as well. So you know she's gonna die horribly because she's all, like, up herself. And he just drops her from this tree, which is about, for fucking some reason, the size of a skyscraper, straight onto the one rock in the whole field, and she her whole back is just broken.
It is brutal, man.
But this is when we actually get to see Pumpkinhead in all its glory for like the first time, because we've only seen the back before, but we get to see the whole face and such.
Well, yes and no. You see some full body shots, but everything's always, if it's a full body shot, he's quite far away. If it's a close up, you see a hand. They turn around and a hand is dragging someone off behind the building. You see these little glimpses. So all the kids are hiding inside. About 3 of them are already dead. He's just slaying through people.
Decimating them.
He actually comes into the house at one point. The jerk is freaking out. He's trying to get to his girlfriend, but he can't. He drags her off. And I kind of thought she was going to live, to be honest. The way it set up her character initially. But you don't know exactly who's going to be the survive to the end characters out of all the teens.
Yeah. But when he comes into the house to drag the girl off, we actually do see his face kind of thing.
That's the first time you see its face in full, and it's clearly a monster devoid of human features.
Because we've seen him, we know how big he is, but we've never actually seen his face. And it's good that you've brought it up that the director had worked on Aliens, because when I saw it, it looks like a xenomorph in some kind of aspects.
It looks like a xenomorph in some aspects, but I thought it really looked like the xenomorph human hybrid from Alien Resurrection.
Fuck, that's
it does,
better.
doesn't it?
Yeah. It really, like, the way definitely its face, like, it reminded me
the shape, the paleness
and
of
the
skin.
movement. Yeah, so.
But I think this looks even better.
Really?
I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And when you eventually see Pumpkinhead in full shots with the performer inside the costume walking about, I honestly think the Queen from Alien didn't look as good at times.
Yeah, I was to be fair, like, now that I know about who the director was and his CV,
forget you didn't know that. What did you think as you were watching it?
I was impressed.
It's amazing. Like, it really is some of the best practical effects, and considering the time it was and when CGI not too shortly after would start to take over, probably it's got to be the peak of that kind of special effects.
I'm so glad that it was this director, because I reckon any other director would have just tried to go to that like other route of like CGI in it as well, like kind of thing.
I mean, CGI didn't really exist, so there wouldn't have been the option.
Oh, good point.
So what it would have been is it would have been shite. It would have looked awful. It would have been terrible, because a quality director wouldn't have picked this up. It would never have had the budget required for your average run-of-the-mill director to get really good special effects. I mean, even if you had a giant budget, people would have struggled to get these special effects. The only reason it had such amazing special effects is because you had the masters of special effects working. You know, Stan Winston's most trusted men directly doing the creature design and puppetry and all that, and Stan Winston with the vision to know exactly how to film it and how to get the most out of it, especially on the minuscule budget.
I think that's worked because if you gave like a huge budget to someone else, they would have just used it, like gone so trigger happy on the effects.
Just you know, you can get a great effect, but just film it not the right
exactly.
way. You know, there's a very specific sort of use of lighting at times whenever Pumpkinhead is on screen. You know, I think it might have been, obviously, you know, the movie takes place over one day and night, and naturally you want the scary stuff happening at night. But I bet Pumpkinhead doesn't look as good during the day if they did try and film some things. You know, he knows exactly how to do it, exactly how to use it, exactly how to combine the puppetry, the animatronic bits with the actual costume bits to blend it in. I never really felt watching it like I could very easily tell that bit's a puppet, that bit's the guy in the suit, that bit's the animatronics. It blended in amazingly well, much better than you see in other films. To the point where it was seamless. Like, as brilliant as Aliens is, and Alien movies, I really can tell when it's an animatronic or when it's the guy in the suit.
No,
I couldn't in this film at all. So the jerk and two of the other main characters run off, and everyone else has been killed, and they're freaking out. They start knocking on doors looking for help. Meanwhile, every time someone's died, you see Lance Henriksen sort of have this mini stroke fever dream thing where everything goes sepia and he starts kind of freaking out as the death's happening, and you get the sense that there's a telepathic connection between their souls.
What do you do? He's like, woke up in a hospital and was like, "Sir, you've had a massive stroke." yeah. And then the film just ends. You're like, do you remember, like, you know, in English, like, you'd write some bullshit story, and then it's all a dream. Yeah, you'd be like, and Daniel woke up. It was a dream, and you get like a fucking AA star. Like, but yeah, now I kind of, we'll go into it a bit later, but this is where I kind of like worked out what I thought was going on. I mentioned it.
You called it.
Yeah. When he was having his mini strokes, I was like, I could kind of see, like, because obviously all witches are bitches.
Mm-hmm.
I say. They never do anything for free. They're very stingy in their magic, so they always have to get. Even though they don't get something out of it, they're like always twiddling their fingers, like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" So I was like, it's gonna be he turns into Pumpkinhead, basically.
Yeah. Well, he was already warned that she would take his soul, so I kind of thought soul going to the devil. But you clocked it early on that he will become the next Pumpkinhead and his soul will be taken. And visually, this is done amazingly, as you start to get these glimpses of every time Pumpkinhead takes a life and gets vengeance on one of these kids' souls. You see, he has one of these sort of freak out sessions. But then he starts to slowly resemble Pumpkinhead. His eyes start to change, his face starts to change. But then, as you later get more close up to Pumpkinhead during the final showdown, you realise Pumpkinhead is starting to resemble him. And the face, the prosthetics on the face of the puppet has started to morph to resemble Lance Henriksen.
I was kind of trying
it looks fucking creepy as shit.
It looks incredible. I was kind of trying to work out if Pumpkinhead kills all the people, does Pumpkinhead turn human and the person...
No. Pumpkinhead is a straight up vengeance demon.
Alright, cool.
In fact, the studio that made the movie actually went bankrupt during production, so it got acquired by United Artists, and they actually retitled it Vengeance Demon. Because in folklore, the folklore of Pumpkinhead, supposedly it was often referred to in... Its actual name was some sort of vengeance demon. It had a different name. It was known supposedly in that area as Pumpkinhead because of the pumpkin patch, and that was kind of like its I don't know, its given name. You know, Bigfoot refers to a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's the nickname.
But it also did help me a little bit, Declan, that I knew there was another fucking free film, so I was like, someone's got to be Pumpkinhead. Do you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I did the special effects and the morphing were very good as well.
Oh, it's incredible. It just looks so great, and they really capture the actor's likeness in such a creepy way, and it's interesting how they're both becoming each other at the same time. So that is maybe the previous soul gets to swap places. I don't know. That's an interesting thought. It'd be interesting to see what they do in the sequels. I'm sure they're shite, to be fair, but...
But what I don't get, obviously, he goes back to the witch and is like, you know, how do we stop it?
No, you gotta stop it.
It's what you wanted.
No, not like this. Not like this.
Obviously, the witch has to be alive to revive this thing. So first thing I do, I'll be like, bitch, if you're not going to tell me how to stop it, I'm just going to fucking kill you. So even if I don't know how to kill it, I know that you won't be able to revive it again. So I would take her out of the picture.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of wanted to know, like, what does this witch do all the other time? like her spare time? She's just sitting there. She's just
I
waiting for people to show up?
I reckon that she only becomes into existence if someone's going to revive her.
Oh, so it's like Schrodinger's witch sort of
Yeah,
deal.
because like remember, he comes in and then she's like, Ed Hardy, I was expecting you.
Yeah. So we have the big showdown. One of the little poor, poverty-stricken older kids from earlier, he starts helping him. He sneaks out. I like the fact that he was nearly wanted to help him, but also was more interested in just being like, did you see him? Like, he just wants to get a look at Pumpkinhead, see if he's real.
You kind of would, though, you know?
But again, it's another moral dilemma. The scene with him and his family mirrors the opening scene, where the kids come knocking at their door, begging for help.
Yeah.
And they refuse to let him in. But this time, one of them decides to help him. So he sneaks out the back, and he brings them to a church, because he thinks maybe a holy ground will stop Pumpkinhead from showing up.
Yeah.
And he explains the whole myth to them, and what it means. You know, you must have done something bad if he's coming for you.
See, according to the legend, if one man does something bad to another man, it's gotta be something real bad, something like killing. And that other man can have Pumpkinhead conjured up to take revenge.
So anyway, Pumpkinhead shows up. He kills the jerk guy, which I was kind of surprised. I thought the jerk was going to live to the end, because considering he's the only one who really deserved revenge, the fact that they were killing everyone else first, I thought, are they going to save him to last as an extra punishment where he has to watch everyone die before him? But he gets killed off now. I guess it was more a fact of he was one of the most interesting characters, so you don't want to kill him off straight away. He has a great death where he does the classic, I'm just going to walk up to the creature that seems to be dead. And he shoots it in the head, and then Pumpkinhead takes his own gun, sticks it through him, and lifts him up with it.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we really start seeing Pumpkinhead just in full wide shots walking around, and he looks unbelievable under the blue moonlight lighting. You know, walking through the set of that abandoned, burned down church. He picks up a cross at one point, starts smacking it about.
Yeah.
And because I was forgetting as well, he's like a demon from hell. So yeah, he hates Jesus and religion and all that shit.
But then again, what would you do, Declan? Like, I'm sorry, we've both discussed that we're not big of faith, but like, if a fucking demon's chasing you, I probably would start saying prayers and shit. Like, but it never works.
Well,
but it's important to note that the role that Dog's play in this film, because the reason I clocked that he was turning into Pumpkinhead, there's another like extra character when they're trying to break into a car with a dog, and then the dog starts growling at Lance Henriksen, bites him. And then you see Pumpkinhead go, ah!
See, I didn't realise Pumpkinhead's reaction at that time, but he specifically bites him when he's having one of his Pumpkinhead murdering induced seizures where he starts freaking out. Lance Henriksen's realised at this point he needs to do the right... Like, again, he's had another moral dilemma, and he's deciding to protect the very people that killed his son, or at least in his mind, killed his son. But he does the right thing and he tries to protect him. He gets together a flamethrower, and you're like, oh,
flamethrower, shotgun.
He's got a shotgun. Yeah. Does he get to use his flamethrower? I think he actually breaks it immediately.
No, what happens is, Declan, he's walking out, and his flamethrower cable gets
caught,
trapped. For some reason, a pitchfork then enters into him.
Yeah.
And then Pumpkinhead's like, oh! So he kind of clocks here that the only way to like win this battle is to destroy himself. Yeah. So it's quite kind of a nice thing.
And that he does. He has the ultimate morality choice of sacrificing himself for the very people who he holds responsible for killing his son. But he does it. He shoots himself. Pumpkinhead falls dead. The chick walks over to see if he's dead, and then Lance Henriksen is still alive, gasping for his last air. And he tells the girl, shoot me. So she shoots him about 9 times. Pumpkinhead falls to his death and bursts into flames.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
It's really done well as well, because it's all done in one shot, and we slowly pull out as, you know, you have that kind of calm moment after the big action where Lance Henriksen's been killed, the girl and the surviving guy are kind of sitting there distraught and shocked, and it pulls out, you see Pumpkinhead's body on the floor, and then it bursts into flame.
Yeah.
And I was just really impressed. Like, most directors would, you know, cut away to that or do whatever, and then a reaction shot of them, but it worked. It was so much more effective the way they all did it in one shot. That's your big finale, and then the very last scene, you see the witch burying the little baby corpse Pumpkinhead back in his spot in the abandoned graveyard in the pumpkin patch, and he's wearing the necklace
that the
son gave the father at the beginning of the film.
And I did notice just before this, it's quite easy to miss that, as you said, his face still looks very like the Ed Hardy.
Ed Hardy.
And he
Not the fashion designer.
Yeah, he also had a tuft of like his hair.
Oh, did he?
But the thing that obviously maybe to be explained in the next film that I don't understand is how he's gone from a human form to that Pumpkinhead kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen him, but I would guess that it's not going to be literally his human form. I suppose his soul would inhabit the Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
You know, I think the Pumpkinhead is a demon that lives on and on and on, and your soul kind of drives it like a vehicle. It's not that you physically, in some way, turned into the Pumpkinhead.
So, yeah, I get you.
It's his essence, essentially.
Alright, so I get you. So, like, he doesn't actually kill the person if he doesn't need to. I assume that he just kills all the people that he's been told to kill. The soul then goes into him, and the physical body of the person who summoned it just dies, and that is the price.
Although saying that, you are right, because that is the rules they lay out. But Pumpkinhead kind of breaks his own rules. In one of my favourite shots in the whole movie, where the little local poor kid who's helping him out is hiding in a shack.
Yes.
And Pumpkinhead sort of steps in, opens the door, has a look round, sort of like, anyone in here? No? Okay. Starts to shut it, goes out, and then he turns around, and this is the best shot that really shows the fantastic animatronics of the movement of the jaw and the head and the teeth, because you get a real close-up on Pumpkinhead. And it fucking scared me in the movie. It's one of the few bits that generally give me a little jump.
But I assume that he's attacking the kid, even though the kid's not done something, because they specifically say he goes for those who are marked or anyone gets in his way. And the kid's trying to hide the people he's trying to kill.
That's a good point. I was taking it more as a literally, physically in his way, but I guess Pumpkinhead with his supernatural powers is aware that that kid is conspiring to help him.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, yeah.
Right, my question to you, now we've nicely wrapped everything up, is who is to blame for this farce? Obviously, the easiest finger to point it to would be the actual jerk on the bike who killed him. But he didn't mean to do it. I think it's the fucking dad, and and hear me out on this. Number one, he's not a very good parent. He just fucks off and leaves him. And number two, before you say, he just doesn't actually ask what actually happened. He wasn't there, and he just the brother's there, and he goes, "Believe me, it's an accident." He doesn't ask for what the story was, who was riding it, what happened. He just fucks off and raises Pumpkinhead.
Well, his first reaction is rage.
Yeah.
And I think we at the time said, I don't understand why he's not really having an emotional reaction here. But I think a lot of that was the fact that he was not processing it properly. He was just going straight to anger, straight to vengeance. And actually, now that I think about it, I think it was maybe quite purposeful that he didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask any questions. He didn't cry. He just went straight to anger.
I don't think it is the father. The actual blame for all of this lies on Buck. Buck's dad or grandpa refused to tell him and said, no, you're only going to go to hell for this. He didn't actually know where the witch lived. Buck was the one that accepted money for him and told him where the witch was. If he didn't tell him that, he would never have stumbled across it and been able to raise Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
Says Buck.
Well, to be honest, I think no one is completely to blame here. And if you're going to blame someone the most, it's that dickhead on the motorbike.
It was actually Pumpkinhead. But he's only been summoned to it. He's a fucking
Pumpkinhead's just doing what he does, right? He's doing summon himself.
He's just doing his job.
Yeah, exactly.
So my next question is, where do you rate Pumpkinhead in terms of, I'm not going to say all-time horror villains, because obviously he's not going to be up there. Where do you rate him in like the pantheon of like supernatural beings and how scary she is?
Do you know what? A hell of a lot higher than I would have expected to say before watching this film. I was delighted with this movie. I couldn't believe how good it was. I expected wonderful special effects, but I didn't expect him to have such a good handle on storytelling in his very first film. I was expecting a hokey, fun monster movie, but the scary bits were actually handled pretty well. You know, there was, the moment where he hallucinates his son's still pale corpse rising up and asking him, "What did you do, Dad?" after he's gone to the witch and summoned Pumpkinhead. Some of the jump scares where you don't realise Pumpkinhead is standing outside the window until he moves off were handled really well. So I was really impressed with this film.
What I did like about it, Declan, is once Pumpkinhead was called to action, as we discussed, he didn't mess about and he just went on an actual fast and clinical rampage.
He started fucking
Instead
people.
of, I know there was gaps in between when they were running away, but you know, in like other films, I don't know, I'm going to take Scream for example, there's so much like dialogue in between him actually to the next murder. With, I know he's a human being, which is different, but once Pumpkinhead goes on a rampage, there's no fucking about, which really contributed to the pace of the film, I thought, as well.
Yeah, it's just pure... and that's another thing, the pace of this movie is about an hour and 26 minutes, and you're left wanting more, and it moves at breakneck speed. Like, it does not fuck about. There's no fat on it. There's no annoying padding. Everything that's in it needs to be in it, and it gets to Pumpkinhead as quickly as it can without not establishing the characters or the relationships beforehand. And once Pumpkinhead's out, he is on a rampage. So I definitely recommend Pumpkinhead. I expected great special effects, but what I didn't expect was to actually get invested in the relationships and the characters. Pumpkinhead, come for the special effects, stay for the morality tale.
This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show.